Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. Spins a web any size, catches thieves just like flies. Look out, here comes the Spider-Man.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Unboxing Spidey, where I show you some cool Spider-Man memorabilia that I've received as I'm seeing it for myself in person for the first time. I keep it a secret until I unbox it. My name is Bruce Wechtenheiser, and I've been a mega Spider-Man fan and collector for 55 years. And over the last 3 years or so, my collection and my stories of collecting and connecting and all the emotional things that have gone on in my life with Spider-Man have been told in YouTube videos, interviews on TV, magazines, newspapers. I really can't believe it's all been happening to me these last 3 years, but I've really been enjoying telling my stories and sharing my memorabilia with people basically around the world. And today I have a special one that I want to show you all in this unboxing video. Years ago, many years ago, when I started collecting and loving Spider-Man at the age of 4, I wanted to be Spider-Man. In my mind, I was Spider-Man. I was the real Spider-Man. But even though I could do some Spider-Man type things, I didn't have a costume that made me look like Spider-Man. So when I was about maybe 6, 7 years old, my mom started buying me some of the wonderful Ben Cooper Halloween costumes of Spider-Man. And Ben Cooper, if you're not as old as me, maybe you don't know, but Ben Cooper was the king of Halloween costume companies. They produced all the characters, all the cartoon characters, all the popular TV and movie characters, and yes, they produced Spider-Man. And Spider-Man, over all their years of operation, Spider-Man was their biggest seller. So way back when, Spider-Man wasn't that big of a thing, but somehow I hooked myself up to a winner like all the Spider-Man fans have over all the years. This is a version of a Ben Cooper Halloween costume, still in a box. It's been used. I've got several of these in my collection, and they came in different box styles. As you can see, over the years, they changed the box styles. They changed the way the costume was made. Sometimes the chest piece was really a flannel material in the early days, in the mid and late 1960s. Then it changed over to almost like a polyester. Then finally it changed over to just plain old plastic. And I didn't realize how many variations there were for these Ben Cooper costumes over the years until basically the past 3 years, when I've really been trying to find some and do some research on the Ben Cooper costumes. Well, I started getting, like I told you, around 6 or 7 years old, and it was cool to be able to look like Spider-Man a little bit, but some of the costume just wasn't authentic to the real Spider-Man. They had yellow all over the chest. There's no yellow in the Spider-Man costume, but it was a way to reflect the lights of when you're out there trick-or-treating so that a car didn't hit you. So they put yellow all over the chest. The mask, let's take a look at one of the masks. The mask looks pretty cool from the front, right? That's Spider-Man. But the back of the mask was just a rubber band. It went around the back of your head. Sometimes that got caught in your hair, and trying to get it out of there, that hurt. Or sometimes you'd end up, when you're putting it on, snapping yourself with the rubber band, and that hurt. But to me, that's not the real Spider-Man. You're not supposed to see Spider-Man's hair in the back, right? So at the age of 8, I begged my mom. She was a great mom. She was raising 4 kids on her own, trying to make ends meet and all those things. But I begged her to sew me a mask, a Spider-Man mask, that would fit over my whole head, cover my hair, and then I could be the real Spider-Man. And being a great mom, she went ahead and she did that. And some of the photos that you're going to see here in this video, you can see what that costume looked like. In addition to that mask that she made me, I asked her to buy me a blue sweatshirt because the costumes at that time had stopped right at the sleeves. So I had a blue sweatshirt. I asked her to buy me some red winter gloves. They were kind of like the wool material, cloth material. And I asked her to buy me some long red socks, like the winter wool socks. So I put on the gloves. I had drawn webs all over them as best I could. I put on the socks over top of my tennis shoes back in the old days. You're not supposed to see Spider-Man's shoes, so I had the red socks over top. I drew webs on those. And my mom, as best as she could, she tried to sew me the mask. But as you can see, it looks kind of like a paper bag upside down. And it had an extra like 6 inches of material above my head. But she tried her best, and I shouldn't make fun of her sewing skills because I again was the one who put the eyes and webs on that monstrosity. So my art skills were 10 times worse than my mom's sewing skills. But in 1972, as an 8-year-old, I was the real Spider-Man finally. And I'm lobbying Wikipedia to recognize me as the first cosplayer in America in 1972 with all those accessories. But all jokes aside, I love the costume. I love being the real Spider-Man, and I could proudly go places as the real Spider-Man. As I was protecting that jewelry store in downtown Johnstown, the hometown of Steve Ditko, the co-creator of Spider-Man himself, and I walked proudly in the Halloween parade as an 8-year-old that year. They let some civilians walk in the parade in a section that you didn't have to be affiliated with the bands, with the floats, any organizations. You could just walk in there. I walked proudly down Main Street of Johnstown. My mom walked along the sidewalk behind the crowd that was watching the parade, tried to keep up with me for a few blocks, and then we met up. So it was a good time to have that costume. My mom also agreed to go to the Cub Scout Halloween party with me and my oldest brother. I'm the youngest of 4. He's 10 years older than me. He made a costume for her, as you can see, kind of like a ringmaster. So she was a great mom, and she went to the Cub Scout Halloween party with me. Well, as much of a pack rat as I am, I've kept almost everything that I've ever owned as a child, as an adult, that had to do with Spider-Man. One thing I have not been able to locate is that mask that she made me or any of the pieces to that costume. I can't locate, and I'm not going to give up yet. There's still a few more things I can check out in my attic and in some of the things that are still remaining from my mom's home, my childhood home. And I'm hoping to find them someday. But I don't have any of the Halloween costumes that I had as a child. And I wore them all year long. I wore them so much I'd tear out the seams, the armpits, the knees. I had to get a bigger size. So I had many of them, but I can't find any. So as an adult, I've gone back and I've gotten several of these costumes. As I said, I've learned that there's a lot of variations. The first costumes, they had sleeves about down to your elbow. And then by 1972, the one I wore that you see in the pictures, it stopped at the shoulder. There were no sleeves to it. Some versions were play suits, which were even more elaborate. But I've learned it, and there's so many different combinations that and variants of it that Ben Cooper was just trying to do their best, and so many different things happen with the costumes. But I've been trying to locate the one that you see in the photos, and to my surprise, it was very hard to find that one. There's many Ben Cooper costumes out there available, eBay, other sources, but that one in particular, when I examined the photographs closely, I saw that it had a red string to tie around the back of your neck, up around the neckline, and also red piping around the ends, the seams of the shoulders, right where it stopped, where it's cut off. Red here, red here. And I kept looking and trying to find some. I couldn't find one that looked exactly like that. I just couldn't. I've been looking for 3 years and I couldn't find it. Well, thankfully, about a week and a half ago, I found one. I found the same style costume that I wore in those pictures that mean so much to me. And I'm going to show you the unboxing of that costume right now. So here's a very plain looking cardboard box. Taking out a little bit of the packing material. And there I see inside the box the start of the costume. So let's get this out of here as carefully as I can. I'm going to set this down a little bit, get it out of the box. And here it comes, everybody. It's coming out. It's making its way out. It's a tight fit. They had it in there as a tight fit. There's the box. The box itself is very similar to one I just showed you. It was kind of like a television screen on the box with children watching TV, just like myself watching the Spider-Man cartoon. And here it is, everybody. The first time I've seen one exactly like the one I wore back in 1972 in person. I haven't seen one like this in person or felt one like this in probably well over 40 years. Well over 40 years. That was 51 years ago when I wore it, and I probably kept it for at least a few years and I could see it. and I haven't seen one like this in person for, like I said, probably well over 40 years. There's the red string, the red piping that goes around the neckline and ties in the back. There's the red around the seam of the shoulder area where it's cut off before the sleeves would have been attached. And this one is still looking in nice shape. Right along the waistline here, on the right side of the waistline, it has the copyright date and things like that. And when I looked at my pictures, even though my pictures aren't the greatest ones, you know, I'm so thankful that I have those. We didn't take a lot of pictures back in the 70s. You had to buy the cubes, you had to buy the film, you had to take the film in to have it developed. It was expensive, so we didn't take many photos. So I'm sure glad that I have those three that you're seeing in this presentation. But it had, I could see in the blurry part of the picture that it had this red copyright on it. So this one does indeed match that wonderful costume that I wore so proudly in 1972. So everyone, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Please check out my YouTube channel, Spidey and Me. I do have other videos on there. I did a video a couple years ago all about the Ben Cooper costumes and the different variations of those and the history of Ben Cooper. I do articles for Spider-Man Crawl Space, the wonderful website. It's called Spidey Stash on there, and one of the episodes was about all the things and all the information that you would ever want to know about the Ben Cooper Spider-Man costumes. But everyone, I want to thank you so much. You can also check out my own website, spideyandme.com, where I talk about my collection, talk about my presentations that I do at comic book conventions, and all the wonderful and simply blessings that I have by being a Spider-Man fan for 55 years and being able to come to you and show you these things and tell you some of my stories and my emotional connections. So I just want to say thank you for tuning in. God bless, and we'll see you next time on Unboxing Spidey.
He's ignored. Action is his reward to him. Life is a great big hang-up. Wherever there's a hang-up, you'll find a Spider-Man.